Good morning. My name is Bobby Egan, and I'm a spokesperson for Alaska Airlines. I'm going to be providing you with the most current and confirmed information regarding the unauthorized operation of Horizon Air's aircraft last night. Information about the unauthorized use of this plane can also be found on our blog and on our social media channels. In a minute, Alaska Air Group CEO Brad Tilden and Horizon Air CEO and President Gary Beck will make a statement. We've already gone over the spelling of your last names. Following the statements, we'll hear from representatives from the FBI and the Port of Seattle. And afterwards, we'll open it up for about 15 to 20 minutes of Q&A for those of you in the room and those of you on the call. Please raise your hand if you have a question, and I will call on you. Be sure to speak loudly so people listening in on the call can hear. I suspect there will be a lot of questions, so we'd like to limit everybody to one each, please. The FBI is leading this investigation, so there's a lot of information that we simply cannot share today. Now let me introduce Alaska Airlines CEO and Chairman Brad Tilden and Horizon Air CEO and President Gary Beck. Brad serves as Chairman and CEO of Alaska Air Group, the parent company of Alaska Airlines and Horizon Air. He is a 27-year veteran of Alaska Airlines. Gary is President and CEO of Horizon Air. He joined the airline in January of this year and previously served as Vice President of Operations at Alaska Airlines for about 6 years. With that, I'll turn it over to Brad.
Thank you, Bobby, and good morning, everyone. All of us at Alaska and Horizon are deeply saddened by last night's unauthorized flight with the Horizon Q400 aircraft that resulted in the loss of life for the individual involved. All 23,000 of us want to express our sincere sympathy to his family, his loved ones, and his coworkers. We're working closely with the authorities to help answer the many open questions that they have, and this cooperation started last night. Our top priority is the safety of our guests and our employees. Simply put, there is nothing more important to us. We're working closely with the FBI, the NTSB, and the FAA to better understand the circumstances behind this incident. We've been told, as Bobby said, that the FBI is the lead agency investigating this. Safety is our #1 goal. There's nothing more important to us. Last night's event is going to push us to learn what we can from this tragedy so that we can ensure this does not happen again at Alaska Air Group or at any other airline. Before I turn this over to Gary, I want to acknowledge and express my deep gratitude to the FAA air traffic controllers, to the Washington and Oregon Air National Guards, and to the first responders from Pierce County. They had a very strong and professional response to this incident. So with us here today, we have, as Bobby said, we have Horizon Air CEO Gary Beck. We also have Jay Tabb, who is leading the investigation for the FBI, and we have Mike Ale, who's the Director of Operations for SeaTac Airport. These folks are going to speak for a couple of minutes, and then we'll be available to answer your questions.
Thanks, Brad. At 7:32 p.m. local time, a Horizon Air ground service agent departed in a Horizon Air Q400 without clearance from SeaTac International Airport. The plane was taken from a maintenance position and was not scheduled for passenger flight. The aircraft crashed about an hour later in a wooded area on Catron Island in rural Pierce County. No ground structures were involved at the crash site. Military jets were scrambled from Portland, but it does not appear the jets were involved in the crash of the Horizon aircraft. And I really want to emphasize that we appreciate the military's professionalism. We're working closely with the authorities and our own safety teams to thoroughly understand this incident. And now I'll turn it over to Mike.
Thank you, Mr. Beck, and good morning. The Port of Seattle and SeaTac International Airport want to ensure that you know that we're working fully with our partners at the NTSB, the FAA, the TSA, and certainly our strong partners at Horizon and Alaska Air. Immediately upon learning of the incident, we worked with our FAA partners to institute a ground stop that prevented any departures from leaving SeaTac until the situation was stabilized. To clear the airspace, arrivals continued and ended at 20:40 or 8:40 p.m. local time last night when normal operations resumed. During the time of the incident, approximately 75 flights were delayed, 9 flights were diverted to other airports, 5 flights were canceled. We estimate that approximately 19 flights incurred delays over 2 hours, and we apologize to our passengers and patrons of SeaTac Airport. None exceeded the 3-hour tarmac rule as instituted by federal regulation. Operations were fully back to normal by 1 a.m. this morning. And moving forward, we'll certainly continue to work very closely with our stakeholders as well as law enforcement. And I'd now like to introduce Mr. Tabb from the FBI.
Mike, thank you. Good morning. My name is Jay Tabb. I'm the Special Agent in charge for the FBI in the state of Washington. First, an expression of condolences and empathy for Alaska and Horizon Airlines and in this loss. And I also want to talk a little bit to the King County and Pierce County residents who I'm sure had a scare last night. I want everybody to know that we are diligently investigating this matter. We will get to the bottom of it. We're doing so with a long list of partners right now, including Pierce County Police Department, Pierce County Fire Department, the NTSB, of course, and some fire rescue folks from the Joint Base Lewis-McChord who are assisting us out there right now. I have dozens of personnel out at the crash site right now. I had 30 to 40 folks involved overnight out interviewing coworkers and family members. And I just want everybody to understand this is going to take a little bit of time. So please be patient with the FBI. We're not prepared today to discuss a lot of details regarding this incident. Just because it is so nascent. So with that, we're going to go ahead and turn it over to Q&A.
We'll now take some questions. Operator, could you please open the call? And I want to apologize to everybody who is calling in. I know that we are having a few technical difficulties, so speakers may have to repeat yourself. We apologize for that. Let's take our first question in the room. Alan.
Mr. Pat, can I ask you what you can tell us? I understand that it's early about the mental state of this man.
It's way too early to comment on that. I'm sorry.
Can you talk about, was he alone? How did he get access to this plane? Was he working on it?
I think at this time we believe he was the only one in the aircraft, but of course we haven't confirmed that at the crash site. If that's your question, and then in terms of the access, that'll best be answered by somebody else.
That is accurate, and can you tell us if this guy's had a history, if he's an employee of the airline, if he has any sort of history of problems?
We do realize that there is some information flowing out there. We are not confirming the identity of the individual involved at this time. It was a 3.5-year employee of Horizon Air. It was a ground service agent for Horizon Air. To answer the question that you asked, he was a background check. There was a couple of different criminal background checks we run on our employees. He had a CETA badge with the Port of Seattle, so that's another. He worked his shift yesterday. We believe he was in uniform. His job is to be around airplanes. He is tow certified, so he's meant to be on the secure. Airports have a non-secure side and a secure side. He's meant to be on the secure side. That's part of the fulfillment of his job responsibilities. This airplane was at Cargo 1. It's on a spot on the north part of the airport. The airplane was not going to be used further last night, and he did go up to there without sort of a purpose other than what he did do.
Did this employee have any flight experience?
We don't know.
Did he take off from the taxiway or the runway?
We don't have that information. Okay. Yes, sir. Yes, I will.
In the area where he was, would there have been any needed additional security for him to commandeer an airplane?
No, the security, and this is something Mike Ale might speak to, but the security regime at SeaTac Airport, there's certain spaces, and he was authorized to be in the area that he was. Mike, do you want to talk about the way you're set up?
Certainly. Now, the question, I believe, is whether there was an additional layer of security that was required. And no, the individual that Mr. Tilden spoke of was fully credentialed. He had access to that area legitimately. It is inside the security fence, and so no security violations were committed.
We're going to take a couple questions from the call operator. Having some difficulty. We'll ask those on the phone to email those in. Yes, Q13.
This guy sounded fully certified and belonging there. You mentioned possibly making changes. What, if anything, can be done to prevent something like this from happening again?
You know, it's very, very early. This incident happened last night. So we are, right now, we're dealing with the response to the incident. We're looking at this. It's natural to ask yourself what procedures are there, and what I've told you is the case. He's credentialed. He was part of his job responsibility. He was around airplanes, working around airplanes. But in terms of improvements that we might make as a company, and as an industry to make this, honestly, to make this very safe industry even safer in the future, it's too early to say. Alaska, we pride ourselves in being a leader in safety, and we will be a leader on this issue, so we will be looking at it, but we're less than 24 hours after the incident. It's far too early to say what additional procedures we might implement.
Yeah, I can take that. Thank you. We have an employee assistance program that's available to all our employees to deal with mental health issues that might arise. It's available 24/7, 365 days a year. I don't know.
Just to check, was an employee of Verizon or a contractor like McGee, and what union did he belong to?
He was a ground service agent employed by Horizon Air. He'd been employed by Horizon Air since February of 2015, and that group is not represented.
When did CTAC recognize that an unauthorized plane had been accessed? And I guess, is there some sort of communication involved that would alert FAA that a plane has been accessed?
Yeah, again, these are good questions, but it's very, very early, and I think it's not fruitful to speculate. Obviously, the tower knew as he was approaching that the tower did know that this was an unauthorized departure.
So, yeah, I'm just talking how that process works.
Yeah.
The plane is accessed, there is a communication or some sort of, the tower is alerted.
Normally, there are ramp clearances, there are ground clearances, there are takeoff clearances. Those did not happen in this situation. This was an unauthorized flight.
So what are the airlines or the airport's responsibilities with regard to securing flight-ready airplanes? You have to lock the wheels, you have to secure the doors. What's in place currently?
Yeah, we're going to be looking at this, but this is we've got a fleet of airplanes. Airplanes are overnight. We're accessing aircraft routinely overnight to view logbooks, to clean the airplanes, to do maintenance work on the airplanes. So the system that works is we secure the employees that are there, but the employees are there. They're credentialed employees. They're there to work on the airplanes. That's their job, to be around these airplanes and to work on them. So that's we'll look at whether improvements can be made going forward, but that is the setup that we have today.
But the key is to secure the employees more than secure the airplane.
That's correct. These airplanes do not, the doors, I mean, and this is aviation in America. The doors to the airplanes are not keyed like a car. There's not an ignition key like there would be in a car. The setup in aviation in America is we secure the airfield, and then we have, the mindset is we have employees that are credentialed and authorized to be there to operate, do their various job responsibilities.
We're going to take a question from Dominic Gates. At that Cargo 1 parking spot, would he have had to back the plane out? And this is just a reminder to our speakers, if you wouldn't mind repeating the question for those of the people on the phone. Thank you.
Just to repeat the question, I believe it was whether the aircraft would have to be backed out, and the aircraft was parked nose east, tail west, if you will, on the Cargo 1 line that the aircraft was assigned. The individual did use a pushback tractor to rotate the aircraft 180 degrees, so he could then taxi the aircraft out onto the active surfaces. Correct. Well, it would depend upon the procedures and, what the air traffic situation was at the time, the dependencies that the flight crew in a legitimate scenario would require in terms of coordination with the ground crew and air traffic control to prepare for that departure.
Sure. And you're right. There were some maneuvers that were done that were incredible maneuvers with the aircraft. To our knowledge, he didn't have a pilot's license. So to be honest with you, I mean, commercial aircraft are complex machines. They're not as easy to fly as, say, a Cessna 150. So I don't know how he achieved the experience that he did. I wouldn't speculate on it. I don't know.
And we're going to try to take a couple calls. Operator?
Okay, once again, if you'd like to ask a question, please press star, then the number 1 on your telephone keypad.
First question, go ahead.
Dominic,
Have you any information about how he got across the taxiways out to the runway?
Is this Dominic? Yeah, Gary Beck. Dominic, repeat the question.
I'm just asking if you have any information about how he got from the cargo stand out to the runway.
I have
how did he
not.
make it across the taxiways to the runway?
Yeah, I have not seen the tower tapes, so I wouldn't speculate on that. I think we'll have to leave that up to the FAA to give you that information.
And is it correct? He's called a ramp agent. Is his job baggage handling and tugging the plane, or was it only working with the plane? Was he a baggage handler as well as a ramp agent?
Yes, he was a ground service agent, so that would encompass loading, unloading bags and cargo, tidying the aircraft, and then as Brad mentioned before, he was also a member of the tow team, which allowed him and qualified him to tow aircraft.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Dominic. Operator, next call.
Another question from the line of John Hemmerdinger. Your line is open.
Thank you, John Hemmerdinger from Flight Global. I apologize. My line clicked in about 25 minutes after the hour, so I missed some of the call. But have you released the registration of the aircraft? And if also, could you repeat any details, specifically when the aircraft took off, how long it flew, what direction it goes? I apologize if you've already said some of this information.
The registration number was N449QX, and we believe he took off at 7:32 p.m.
And the crash time?
Again, all of this information is extremely preliminary, but we lost contact with him at 8:47 p.m.
Thanks, Brett.
Thanks, John. Operator, next caller.
Another question from the line of Dennis Guerrero. Your line is open.
Hi, yes. Can you talk a little bit about communication in the tower in regards to pilots coming in and out of SeaTac? Were they aware of the situation?
Yeah, that's a great question. The communications normally, I believe that as Mike Ale mentioned, normally you would request clearance for pushback from either your own tower or ground control. You'd then speak with ground control all the way out to the runway. They would turn you over to the tower, who would then clear you for takeoff. And I believe, in fact, I know that he did communicate on the ground frequency, and all of the communications for the entire flight were conducted on that frequency.
And just one more follow-up question. Was there ever any close calls at this time with other aircraft?
Not to my knowledge.
Thank you.
It's very, very preliminary. It's not right to speculate on those, on the answer to that question.
And let's go back to KUOW.
I'd be happy to get that information for you, but I don't know it offhand. The criminal history records check is a 10-year background check. So it covers the 10-year period for the initial application, and then every 2 years they're required to renew that.
Does that include any criminal charges, only convictions? I mean, what are you actually looking for?
I'm actually not the appropriate spokesperson for that. Sorry.
We'll get you more information, but there's an airport CETA badge, that there's a certain criminal background check, and there are a couple of different checks that Alaska Air Group does on employees in this classification. We'll get you more detail on exactly what those criminal background checks are.
And then specifically on this person, did he have any criminal charges against him?
We're not aware of any. We're gathering information. I think for now, the right thing for us to do is to let the investigation proceed, and when we have more information that we're confident in, we will share that with you. But I think that's the right approach for us for at this moment. You know, this is an untypical scenario, so that's the first thing. But yeah, normally if an airplane is being marshaled in, marshaled out, there would be a team of employees with the airplane.
I'm sorry. We have two more questions, and then we're going to have to conclude this. We're going to go to the phone, Andrew first, and then Rachel from the AP.
Okay, your line is open, Mr. Andrew Tango.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. Just to follow up on what procedures Horizon and the airport have right now to secure an aircraft beyond just the door. My understanding is that there are basically three layers of security for flight-ready aircraft at airports in U.S. aviation. They've got to be attended, they've got to have their wheels locked, and they've got to have the doors somehow secured. Don't know if that's the case with Horizon and Seattle's airport, but if you could at least tell us what procedures now are in place.
Yes, those procedures are in place with chocks. And as Brad mentioned before, there's no way to lock the passenger doors. The handle stows into the door, but there's no keys like there are for your car or your home.
Okay, and also the wheels and also the question about whether or not flight-ready aircraft should be attended at all times.
Yes, for flight-ready aircraft, that's true. They would be attended at all times. This particular aircraft was not scheduled for a flight.
Okay, so it's
Thank you,
airport
and
didn't
we're
need
going to have
be
to move
attended.
on. Thanks. I'm sorry, Andrew, we can follow up with you afterwards. Operator, next caller.
Okay.
Another question from the line of Rachel Lacorte. Your line is open.
Okay, thank you. And I apologize in advance if this was answered already. There's been a bit of a lag on the phone. And whoever answers the question, please identify yourself since I can't see you. But my question is how many people were in the vicinity on the ground when he took the plane? And did someone on the ground alert the tower first? And then also if you could describe the process on how to start the engines. And I know you mentioned he didn't have a pilot's license. So whether that was something he could easily know how to do starting a double engine prop.
I'll answer the second part of the question first, and that's the engine start. Unlike a car, that's not a key that you stick in the ignition and turn. It would be a series of switches and levers that would be used to start the engine. We don't know how he was able to do that. We don't know how he learned to do that. And I'm sorry, what was the first part of the question again?
First, if you could just say which of the speakers you are, since I can't see you.
I'm sorry, it's Gary Beck.
Okay, thanks, Gary. And the first question was, how many people were on the ground in the vicinity of the plane when it was taken? And was somebody on the ground the first to alert someone that something was wrong, or who was the first to know that something was amiss?
Like Brad said before, it's really early in the investigation to answer those questions. We haven't seen all of the tapes and all of the information that occurred right at the time that the aircraft was moved.
Oh, unfortunately, that's going to have to conclude the Q&A portion. I do want to thank everybody for coming today. We'll be sharing more information on our blog and through, of course, the FBI who will be leading this investigation. Thank you very much.